I said, "Well, Howard, uh, what was why was John Kennedy assassinated? What would be in those reports that would be important?" And he said, why was John Kennedy assassinated? He said, John Kennedy was assassinated because he was about to give our most vital secret to the Soviets. About to give our most vital secret to the Soviets. And I was stunned by that. I mean, John Kennedy, our president, Soviets, and I never even heard about such a thing. And he said, and I said, well, what was that? And at that point, he leaned forward and looked right in my eyes, directly in my eyes, and he said, the alien presence. And he reached out and shook my hand and then turned and walked away. And that was the last time I saw Howard Hunt.
Wow.
The alien presence,
That's amazing.
Now, looking back, it didn't make any impression to me at the time because I had not.
Were you shocked by it?
Well, I was shocked, but I was not a student of the Kennedy assassination. That did not take place till 2006. It didn't mean that much to me. I knew it was important, but it did not mean that much. There's no way I could. In the alien presence, I was not really familiar with that either. But I remembered it. I knew it was important, and so this came up later on when I joined the education forum, and this sort of congealed in my mind.
Guys, you're watching Douglas Caddy being interviewed by Dark Journalist. This video is from 9 years ago. But this was a very key interview. Douglas Caddy was the lawyer for the Watergate burglar. As he was basically, E. Howard Hunt had hired Douglas Caddy to go and bail out the burglars, and he was hiding in the background in the whole Watergate robbery and burglary and heist and everything. He knows the whole Watergate story inside and out. This is a fascinating interview. If you watch this, everyone was saying that Mark Felt of the FBI was Deep Throat for years, and no, it was actually the arresting officer who was the source for all this information. And he names that, all the he does all the connections. But the key thing is that he says that Watergate burglar E. Howard Hunt told him that the whole key behind the JFK assassination, the very reason for JFK getting taken out, and this is right here at 2 hours and about 5 minutes in the interview here, he says is because JFK was going to give away our deepest secret, which is the alien stuff. What you want to make of that, I don't know. But let's get back to that in a second with the JFK stuff. We're going to do a deep dive part 2 on the JFK assassination tonight. But it's been a while since I've done a podcast, and I've had some technical difficulties and trying to get one launched all week. So there's a lot going on this week that needs to be addressed and talked about. One of the main things is the amazing and spectacular megastructures. This was covered on, Joe Rogan was talking about this on his podcast. Been seen by over 1 million people since the other day. And, J Project Unity, you guys are maybe familiar with his channel. Oh, I can't see my screen. I'm sharing nothing. Here we go. Jay's channel on Project Unity. If you go and search for Alien Scientist on his channel, you can find 2 of my interviews. I did one with Bruce Fenton, and then another one where we just talked about psyops and all kinds of other stuff. Man, it should have gone on for another hour and past that 1 hour. But yeah, so I've talked to Jay, and he's definitely hip to a lot of ideas. But one of the things I think is crazy about Jay is that he swears this psychic contact protocol, the CE5 stuff works, that he's summoned these orbs. And of course, the internet is going absolutely apeshit on this pyramid story with these megastructures beneath the damn pyramids. You got Flint Dibble out here whiling off for an hour about, you know, every every mainstream argument in the book, and then the main thing is that the way that this data is collected, they have to really map out and show that, like, what we're seeing actually conforms to real physical structures, and that you're actually getting good data, and that this there's a lot of weird stuff going on right now. I wanted to show this other video. I don't know if it's on my channel, but this whole cavity structure effect, I really wanted to let people know about that whole thing. There's been a number of videos going around about cavity structure effects and using, pyramidal shapes in terms of resonance with different objects to get some really interesting results. So one of the theories is that, they're just shining this thing underneath the pyramids, and what they're seeing is not realistic, real objects, but echoes or vibrations of other things. But hey, man, if this is real, columns, this would be cool, because there's been theories about this whole pyramidal hall of records, the underground city, or the an ancient pre-dynastic civilization, prehistoric civilization that was covered up, or their idea is that aliens had built this giant thing and then built this giant pyramid on top of it to protect it forever. And I don't know, man, who knows what the heck is under there unless we really get out there and start, but then how are you going to dig under there and look at stuff without disturbing it? I mean, this whole foundation, the whole thing's built, I thought, on a giant quarry. Like, they quarried all the stone from this place and then used the stone foundation or bed as like the base for the pyramids, because it was this giant slab of rock. I can't imagine that there's these massive skyscraper sized megastructures underneath the pyramids. And if there are, then that's definitely something that should be investigated, man. If that's a hall of records for some ancient knowledge or something, man, that would be the discovery of the millennium. It'd be absolutely amazing. But yeah, lots of interesting stuff there, guys, to explore. So again, not going to take sides on this one either way until we see more evidence. I think that we should, be hopeful but skeptical when these kinds of things come out, because it'd be cool if it was like Total Recall and we found some giant, historical database, something important. But we'll see. The cool thing is that we're going to dive into the JFK assassination tonight and really explore the theories of why JFK was killed, all the different ideas out there. And, what's I think is nuts is all the different ideologies and the stuff that I'm seeing a lot of on Twitter seem to be, okay, the driver shot Kennedy, right? Driver shot Kennedy theory. I don't know if you guys have heard this one. And I don't know why it's not letting me search. Nope, the driver did not shoot Kennedy. It's just a reflection over the top of the head. William Greer. Not related to Stephen Greer. Just the limo driver. Again, it's the reflection off this guy's head. It looks like a pistol being held by a hand, and that he's turning around and firing. Of course, it's the brain splatter. The brain splatter goes this way and to the back, and they found the big hole in the back of JFK's head as the head gets taken out. So that shot clearly comes from the knoll. We're going to talk about the Knoll and the assassination in just a second. Noshawn Island is a key part of this whole puzzle, because this is where Allen Dulles, the recently fired director of the CIA, goes on vacation in the summer of 1963 with his mistress out on this Noshawn Island. And he's apparently there with another interesting character named Ruth Payne. So the assassination and Mrs. Payne is a whole documentary I encourage everyone to go and watch. I went and watched it recently. You can go to jfkpayne.com, watch the preview right here. I think I watched it on Prime, on Amazon Prime Video, and it was only like $3 or $4, and it was totally worth it. Just interesting to watch her being confronted with, hey, you know, we found that your father was one of the guys who set up this, you know, I don't know, this organization. You may not have heard of them. They're called USAID. It's kind of interesting. USAID. Her father works, you know, is one of the guys that sets up and works for USAID. And she's this Quaker woman who shows up around very interesting places doing, you know, very interesting charity work. They found her down in Nicaragua or something, and like apparently collecting intelligence on other groups and stuff, and confronted her. And her sister is like longtime CIA. She meets with her sister, then goes out to Noshawn Island, and then after leaving there comes, you know, stays there with Allen Dulles and his mistress, and then leaves Noshawn Island and comes down to New Orleans, where she picks up the Oswalds. She picks up Lee and Marina Oswald and drives them to Dallas and gives them a place to live and sets them up in Dallas, and then hooks Lee up with this job at the school book depository building, right? And right where in the assassination zone, in a building owned by D. Harold Byrd. Again, D. Harold Byrd is this top secret aerospace company CEO. Ling Tecmo Vought Aerospace is the one that built all the flying saucer shaped craft out at Wright-Patterson in late 1940s and in the early 1950s. So all this secret space program stuff is revolving around Dealey Plaza. You got Byrd. Of course, Byrd's uncle is Admiral Byrd, who runs the Antarctica expedition. So you have this immediate connection to the whole Antarctica file, which is top secret, and a lot of the UFO stuff is classified under the Antarctica project and Antarctica stuff. Again, we're going to watch the Zapruder film and really get into assassination details and dynamics, and really, really knock a hole in what all the skeptics like to call the accepted narrative. So let's look at what the skeptics are saying about the second shooter and the single shooter theory. Where was this? Come on, I can't even find it. They don't get enough views to even be relevant these days. But it's funny to entertain, to look at what these people actually believe still in terms of the JFK assassination and what they're trying to put out. Okay, so here's the thing. We'll put this up on the screen for everyone to see. There's what my skeptic, the guy who runs Skeptic magazine, yet is not skeptical at all in any way whatsoever. Here's what he's saying about the Kennedy assassination, is that, it lines up perfectly with the bullet wound, and this is, this is how that bullet caused all these wounds, because they had to explain all these wounds with just 2 bullets, and it was terrible for the Warren Commission that they really had to stretch credulity and explanation and in order to pull this one off. But again, the single bullet theory. And again, they put a shooter in a really conspicuous spot where anyone, would have seen them, right here. This is not where the grassy knoll, this is not where the grassy knoll is. This is not where this, between these 2 trees on this side of the white picket fence, is the location where the 3 railroad workers on the triple overpass reported seeing the shots and fired from the puff of smoke fired from. It's where Lee Bowers in the railroad control tower right over here, with a perfect view of the whole back of the whole area in Dealey Plaza, said he reported seeing 2 men standing by the fence. That's where they found the footprints and the cigarette butts. It was right here in the back corner behind the knoll over here. And again, the vantage point of where this shot was fired from, you're talking a distance of 50 feet versus a distance of 280 feet to the depository window, right? That's not even counting the vertical feet up the 6 floors, but that's just 280 feet. So 50 feet, it's a 6 times easier shot. I mean, you're 1/6 of the distance away. That's a way easier shot to make, especially where the final headshot happened. This is where, and then let's actually, if this one single bullet theory caused all these wounds, let's actually take a look at the Zapruder film. Actually, I want to show the so this was actually the first time that the Zapruder film was shown on national television. So this is amazing. March 6th, 1975. I'm going to play this clip for you real quick so people can check this out.
I want to introduce another guest. We have Robert Grodin, who is celebrating his 18th birthday on the 22nd of November in 1963. He was profoundly touched by the president's death, and he desperately wanted to understand how it could have happened. For 2 years, he, like most Americans, believed in the official version, the Warren Commission version of what happened, but the day he first saw that 8mm Zapruder film, that amateur film that was made, that was the day he stopped believing. Robert, welcome, and I wish you could set up the Zapruder film a bit for us, and we'll get right into it.
Okay. Abraham Zapruder was a Dallas dress manufacturer, and it was pure accident that he brought the camera with him that day. He almost didn't. And he was looking for a good vantage point, and he picked a point on Elm Street in Dealey Plaza in downtown Dallas. As the motorcade passed in front of him, he got what is frame for frame the most valuable historical document of all time.
It's become very chic among television producers to put a disclaimer at the head of any film. The film you're about to see might be shocking, it might be horrifying, you might not want your kids to watch it. And I think the unfortunate net effect of that is to make more people watch it. Well, I'm telling you right straight out that if you are at all sensitive, if you're at all queasy, then don't watch this film. Just put on the late night movie because this is very heavy. It's the film shot by the Dallas dress manufacturer Abraham Zapruder, and it's the execution of President Kennedy. And
So Robert Groden set up a shop in Dealey Plaza out there, and he was actually arrested like 50 times by the Dallas police for like bullshit charges. That all the charges would always get dismissed. He would, fight them and take it to trial and get it dismissed. But they really tried to go after him. That the Sixth Floor Museum did not like him hanging around Dealey Plaza, telling people the truth and showing them better information. And this, of course, is none other than Dick Gregory on 1975. Yeah, that's how OG Dick Gregory is with the conspiracy stuff. He was talking about JFK truth with Geraldo back in 75. And rather than watch this, reproduction of the 1975 footage. I mean, this is 1975. Let's watch the Zapruder film on YouTube, fully restored. And again, this is very graphic footage. What you're about to see is gunshots and tearing through people. So if you can't handle that sort of thing, this would be a good time to look away. And we're going to really dive into this and analyze this, though, to put some myths that skeptics or so-called pseudo-skeptics, people that try to call themselves skeptics, attempt to for one, we know that this footage is authentic. It hasn't been doctored. There's been attempts to try to discredit the footage, but let's look at the key frame. So here's the Stemmons Freeway sign, and we see that JFK is fine. He's waving, looking around before he's still waving, and then when he emerges from the Stemmons Freeway sign, the president's been hit in the throat. His hands are gone up in this position like this, and he's now grasping at his throat. He's also, you can see that his wife is looking to the side at him. So he's clearly been hit. The first shot missed according to the Warren Commission. So now the second shot, the magic bullet that supposedly hit Connally, has already hit Kennedy. And then the third was the headshot, which takes out his head. But the second bullet is this magic bullet, which we're looking at Connally now. Connally is clearly turning to look behind him because he sees that the president has been hit, and then there's some commotion. So Connally, looking behind him now, is like right around here. They go behind the fence post. Connolly's totally turned around completely and looking behind him now, fully at the president, seeing that the president's now been hit. He's got blood and he's grasping at his throat. You can see the blood on JFK's face right here in this frame, slightly. And then right around this frame right here, Connally is now opens his mouth and starts turning back forward and is screaming out in pain. So this is the frame where Connally's hit. Right there, you can see where Connally's head goes back and he's like, ah! That's the point where Connally's hit. So JFK's, the Warren Commission's completely wrong, because the Warren Commission says that the first shot missed, the second shot caused both the wounds to Kennedy's throat and Connally. But here Connally turned around, and the time that they went behind the Stemmons Freeway sign right here, Connally turned around to look at JFK and then turns back, gets hit right around there, and then once JFK's final headshot comes through, then Connally ducks down. So they're being shot at this entire time by a whole crossfire of bullets. Not just two shots. So the second shot misses before they get to the Stemmons Freeway sign. And that's when, Kennedy's looking around. So right here, he's been shot once. Hands go up. Connally clearly hasn't been shot yet. We're supposed to believe that second bullet shot Connolly through the shoulder and took out his wrist, and that he's turning around to look at JFK completely after being shot, both those locations. And then it just does not add up. The Warren Commission is completely false, and it's a lie. It is wrong and stupid for people like Michael Shermer to put this crap forward still on ag. I mean, this Zapruder film's out there. People can go watch this and see. That single bullet theory saying that Kennedy shot in the throat and by the same bullet that hits Connolly and breaks his wrist, when you can see in the Zapruder film, right there, plain as day, man. Clearly, Kennedy shot in the throat, Connolly looking behind him, turning around, and then all of a sudden here, Connolly's hit. And then another third shot takes out JFK's head, which let's go analyze that final headshot to JFK's head. Boom. Boom. You see the mist right there, pink mist, and the head goes back into the left. Back into the left. And where does that put us in terms of a shooter? Well, if the car is right here positioned, you know, coming down Elm Street towards the triple underpass, back into the left lines up perfectly with the shot right here. My wife even thinks that, you know, we were like, I was saying, oh, some people say that he was in the storm drain. There's a storm drain right here. You see the storm drain? You can go and look and zoom in on the storm drain right there, right? So there's a theory that there was a shooter in the storm drain. It doesn't add up because another theory my wife had is that they had a shooter in a ghillie suit in the tree. He could have just stayed there all day. But then again, why do you need the two guys on the side of the picket fence that everybody saw hanging out there behind near the car? The one dressed as a policeman, believed to be Roscoe White. And then the whole Roscoe White story just gets more and more crazy the more you dig into it. Another one that was murdered before they could really get, you know, a real story or information out of him. But again, much easier shot there if you're on that X right in the road. Right there is where the shooters were. A lot of people believe they were right here. You know, right on this corner of the fence, right on this edge of the fence, right there. My wife thinks they were in the tree. But again, it makes sense when you watch this Zapruder film. They're coming down Elm Street. You can see that final headshot. Oops. And it just came from the knoll. That shot did not come from the book depository that takes JFK's head out. That's just anyone who watches this Zapruder film just knows ballistics and knows guns, knows that shot came from the front, right where the knoll is, right where the great white picket fence is. That's where the shot comes from. It does not come from back and behind. And then for them to think a single bullet could explain this when Connolly, in the meantime that JFK has already been hit in the throat, grabbing at his throat, Connolly turns around and looks at him completely. And then that's when Connolly's hit. He's screaming out in pain right there. And then he ducks down after being hit, and he sees JFK's head get blown off. And then she freaks out, jumps, and the craziest thing that we're really looking for in this JFK file dump, one of the really waiting for, is actually Jackie Kennedy's testimony to the Warren Commission, because she was the closest person to John F. Kennedy when he got shot, and she described the wounds, she described what she saw, what happened, and her testimony to the Warren Commission is completely left out. It's still censored to this day, and we're still waiting for her testimony to come forward from in the JFK files. So yeah, there may have been a shooter in the Texas Depository building. I'm not sure if it was Oswald or not, but you can totally see in the Zapruder film, anyone plain as day, that final headshot does not come from the depository. comes from the knoll. It comes from the grassy knoll right there. And there's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. No, she was diving to get out of the car. She just was running, and that's what someone said, is that she's chasing a chunk of his brain on the trunk of the car. But I don't believe that to be the case. We won't know for sure until we get her Warren Commission testimony. They published the Warren Commission. It was a huge volume, and they didn't think anyone would read it. Anyone except the one reporter who said he believed the Warren Commission completely. Said he read it in a day, but no, those who actually read it and took the months to really go through and read it know that Mark Lane was this attorney that actually went through and read all this, and I was listening to several debates he had back in the day, back in the 60s, man, and he was just mopping the floor with them and the official story on the JFK assassination. And they were, he was complaining because he said, the Warren Commission has more pages covering me than it does the key witnesses, which saw the assassination, the people that were right there that saw the most and testified to seeing things that they didn't want in the Warren Commission. So they left out so many. There were so many key witnesses that they did not call to testify, or just left their testimony out of the Warren Commission completely. It was clearly a cover-up. The whole commission was designed as a cover-up. And it is a stain on the reputation of America and the public. And we were called conspiracy theorists for decades, when the truth is that we were right all along. Now, the Forbes family, what's interesting about the Forbes family is that, remember Nashon Island, where, Ruth Payne goes to Nashon Island with Alan Dulles the summer of 1963 and has this meeting there. Well, Nashon Island is actually owned by the Forbes family. So the Forbes family is John Kerry. John Kerry is the youngest member of the Forbes family. As you remember, John Kerry was the Skull and Bones man that ran against George Bush in the 2004 election. And it was revealed that, both candidates for president were members of the same secret society. This Skull and Bones man. Well, the Skull and Bones man may have had something to do with the JFK assassination, because, where does Alan Dulles and the lady who's so tied deeply to the whole entire JFK assassination go the summer of 1963? But they go to the Forbes family's, private island out in Martha's Vineyard. And that's apparently where the whole plan was discussed and went through. In fact, there were several plans, as we talked about. There was not just the JFK and Dallas plan. There was a plot in Miami. There was a plot in New York and a plot in Chicago that all fell through. But they ended up getting him in Dallas. And man, guys, I don't know if you've seen this one yet, but the best, there's a channel called America's Untold Stories, and he really goes. Mark Grobert is really an expert on this stuff, and he's got a whole bunch of great videos. Where's the most recent one? He said, "Yeah, what does these reveal? What did the Q&A?" Very interesting stuff to say. He was recently also on Timcast. I don't know if you guys watch Timcast IRL, but yeah, Mark Grobert was recently on Tim Pool, on the Tim Pool podcast. Go check that out. Lots of cool stuff shared. He does a good short overview for people with low attention spans. and really nails a lot of stuff on the JFK files. And if you ever want to dive deep on the history, this is a great podcast. I listen to these at work and just learn tons and tons of stuff about the JFK assassination. One of the things I got wrong in my part 1 series on the JFK assassination that we had talked about, and this was the 9/11 stuff that is in part 2 of my task force. Yeah, the Curtis Laverne Crawford stuff. So one of the things I wanted to really get into with that is that I had mixed up Curtis Laverne and George Senator. I didn't mention George Senator. Now, and I think I got them conflated. I conflated the two. But anyways, Jack Ruby lived with this guy named George Senator and worked with George Senator since, the 1950s, when mid 1950s, Senator, in 54, Senator moves to Dallas and worked as a traveling salesman. He later sold pictures of postcards. And then in 62, he said Senator moves in with Jack Ruby. And currently he didn't pay rent, but he did work at Ruby's Carousel Club. But what's interesting is that, the new JFK files that have come out on Jack Ruby show that Jack Ruby was working for, some sort of, interesting. He was basically an FBI informant since 1947, working on, some kind of operations, like clandestine stuff. And there's pictures of him in Dallas. These newly discovered footage from the 60s, people found, oh, there's Jack Ruby in this old footage. And Jack Ruby's there at this thing with George Senator. So, there's Jack Ruby, there's George Senator, and they're both holding Minox spy cameras and taking pictures of this parade that's going by. And someone on the parade has a camera and, of course, films them as they're going by. But it's Jack Ruby and George Senator, and they've these Minox, spy cameras. So what they're doing with these spy cameras and, hanging out and it's kind of weird. This is just a lot of weird stuff. And then Mark Lane wrote this great book on the Warren Commission, which I'm going to buy and read. And then Bill Hunter, again, I mentioned that there's a number of journalists that wound up dead or assassinated in connection with the assassination of John F. Kennedy. And William Hunter is one of those guys. So very interesting story of it's definitely suspicious. There's so many suspicious deaths around the JFK assassination. He's interviewing who did he interview? He was interviewing friends of he got a tour of Ruby's apartment and was killed afterward. Yeah. He's a reporter who went to Ruby's apartment with Hunter the night after Oswald was shot. So they both died. They both get fucking murked after going to Ruby's apartment. Then the Judith Exner connection. I didn't really talk about Judith Exner. She is also a key part of this whole Sam Giancana to Kennedy connection. She's basically the go-between that the CIA is using as a back channel. And very interesting. She was going to be like an actress and all this stuff, and she got into like organized crime and really, really interesting story with Judith Exner and all that. Also, the CIA director, he was put into office. Kennedy fires Allen Dulles, and he was trying to put Clifford Clark in as the CIA director, but doesn't get him and gets this guy instead, John McCone, which is an interesting choice for CIA director. John McCone's there, of course, for the assassination, and then he retires and gets out on April 28th, 1965. And William Rayborn, takes over for him, a career U.S. Navy guy. So it's interesting to look at whose hands are controlling the CIA before, during, and after the Kennedy assassination with John McCone and this William Rayborn guy, who's again led the project to develop the Polaris missile system. And but McCone, before he joins, the CIA, he comes out of the Atomic Energy Commission. So the Atomic Energy Commission, of course, he was preceded by Lewis Strauss and succeeded by Glenn Seaborg. Glenn Seaborg was the, Berkeley guy who discovered all the big heavy elements on the periodic table, like half of the heavy side of the periodic table was like discovered by Glenn Seaborg. And so Glenn Seaborg and the Atomic Energy Commission is a very interesting connection in all this. And then the fact that before the Atomic Energy Commission, he works for the United States Undersecretary of the Air Force. So you got an Air Force guy with atomic energy connections and becoming head of the CIA, and he's got all this background in ITT, General Accounting, Bechtel, and Consolidated Steel Corporation, where he got his whole start out in California there. And the real interesting thing is that McCone revealed CIA information about Israel's Dimona nuclear weapons plant to the New York Times. Hirsch writes that President John F. Kennedy was fixated on the Israeli nuclear weapons program, and one of the reasons that contributed to McCone's appointment as CIA director was his willingness to deal with this and other nuclear weapons issues, and despite the fact that McCone was a conservative Republican. So when you see all these conspiracy theories on, I see a very popular one I see on X for the conspiracy theories, the driver shoots Kennedy, of course, and then the whole one where it was Israel and the Jews and the Israel that did 9/11, or APEC, the people that wanted to stop APEC, that Kennedy was going after APEC, and that was the reason that Kennedy had to be assassinated. It was all Israeli intelligence, and that's just totally disproven by the presence of John McCone and John McCone's anti-Israeli nuclear weapons program stance, and all that is really a wrench in the whole plot of what the guys like Ian Carroll and others are trying to put forward as their conspiracy theory for why Kennedy was assassinated. And I argue that it had much less to do with the Israel and anything to do with Israel than it had to do with the Bay of Pigs, the CIA, Alpha 66, and the whole UFO file. I mean, we started this off with by talking about Douglas Caddy, and the revelations that he made 9 years ago on the Dark Journalist, in this interview with Dark Journalist in 2015, where, Caddy says, straight up that Kennedy was going to give up the UFO file. Now, I don't know where these people are going with the whole Israel did JFK and did 9/11, did everything angle on all their conspiracy, their flavor of the week. But last I checked, LBJ, good old LBJ, Didn't really have much to do with Israel there. And then D. Harold Byrd, of course, this is much more to do with private top secret aerospace and the UFO file, the top secret UFO file. This is all deep state UFO file stuff. When you really dig into the Kennedy assassination and look at who owned the building, I mean, this wasn't Israeli intelligence, man. This was deep state UFO program people. You know, D. Harold Byrd was deep state UFO program person. Guy Bannister was the cigarette smoking man of the X-Files. He's literally the guy who created the X-File, the file designation X for the FBI. He knows David Ferrie. He's working with Lee Harvey Oswald's working for Guy Bannister down in New Orleans when he comes back. Lee Harvey Oswald is top secret aerospace. He's U.S. naval intelligence. He's not CIA. He's recruiting into naval intelligence. And then he sheep dipped, where they tried to send him to Russia to infiltrate as a double agent to infiltrate Russian intelligence. But Russians were hip to the whole program, knew he was coming, and kept him under surveillance in Minsk the entire time of his stay. And so he got sent packing back with a wife, Marina Oswald. Of course, Marina Oswald was the nephew or niece of the Ministry of Internal Affairs, which is like the Russians' FBI. So the head of the Russian FBI sends his daughter marry Lee Harvey Oswald, and she comes back to the U.S. with Lee Harvey Oswald, and they don't know what to do with this Lee Harvey Oswald guy, but they have him working for intelligence still. He thinks he's working for intelligence. And then the whole big thing that's coming out is how they framed him. Because they have this guy, Victor, and they have a fake Oswald going down to Mexico City in September of 1963. And this whole fake Oswald goes down to Mexico City. And that whole story is just, it stinks to high heavens. It needs to be investigated. Hoover was looking into it, knew that they had pictures of the guy, right? So Oswald that visited Mexico City. So the Russian embassy in Mexico City gets visited by this guy claiming he's Lee Harvey Oswald, but they got pictures of the guy that actually visited the embassy, and here's the pictures, and it's not Oswald. Okay, it doesn't look like Oswald, but Hoover's determined to figure out who this guy actually is that's impersonating Lee Harvey Oswald and going down to the Mexico City and demanding to meet with a certain guy who basically runs the wet works for the Russian, for the Russians, for the KGB. So they have Oswald going to meet with the Russian KGB. They're trying to set up a paper trail to link Oswald to this Russian assassination links, so that they can. Part of the plan was that they were going to try to make the whole. They use this to shut up LBJ in the phone call to LBJ, right? So LBJ Hoover phone call. The day after the assassination, one of the key phone calls that LBJ and Hoover have this conversation. This is the day after the assassination, and over the phone, LBJ and Hoover basically, LBJ says that we don't want this whole thing with the Russians to get blown up and it could start World War III, and we don't want that to happen. So basically, the way they get all these people to back off, including Earl Warren. It turns out that Earl Warren is backs off all the allegations of conspiracy in the Warren Commission, because he's afraid that, you know, this whole Mexico City thing with Oswald links the KGB to Oswald, and that, you know, that if they find out that the Russians killed our president, then that could start World War III, and so that they don't want to have any sort of conspiracy stuff involved, and that's used as the way that they squash all this, is this fake link to the Russian KGB with this Victor guy that they're trying to set up now, and there's a big attempted paper trail to try to tie, you know, Lee Harvey Oswald to the KGB and KGB handlers. And of course, we now know that his handlers were guys like George de Mohrenschildt. And George de Mohrenschildt, of course, has that whole biography. George de Mohrenschildt has a book that he keeps, and inside his book is George H.W. Bush's name and address. So, and he writes a letter to George Bush while he's, you know, going under testimony to the Warren Commission, and then winds up with, you know, bullets in his head the next, you know, shortly after. Very strange. So that this guy knows Lee Harvey Oswald, connects Lee Harvey Oswald and Ruth Paine and all this stuff. Is this basically says he, you know, he's working for Russian intelligence to keep an eye on Oswald after the fact, but could be working for CIA intelligence as well, because he's tied to this whole Operation W.U. Briney thing. And the W.U. Briney business is oops, let me hide that. Anyways, I don't know why people are calling me who are in the live chat on my phone, but you know I'm live, right? Anyways, George de Mohrenschildt is connected to the CIA as well through this whole W.U. Briney business with the Sissel and this Sissel trade discussion business. It's a whole big mess, man. And these guys are all knew Oswald. They tried to set Oswald up with this Russian connection. They tried to set plant all these other fake connections. There's a lot of that stuff coming out in the documents that are coming out now, but we're really waiting for, what we really want is, we want Jackie's testimony to the Warren Commission. We want to know what Jackie Kennedy said to the damn Warren Commission. We want Ruth Paine arrested. She's the last surviving conspirator in the plot. Marina Oswald could probably say a lot if she could be allowed to talk freely. They had her write this whole, you know, biography, and she worked with this author to write, to basically who translated everything. No, this is Priscilla McMillan is the one I wanted. Priscilla McMillan is this does this interview with her. She writes the whole book and basically translates it all, and then it comes out later that Priscilla McMillan's like a CIA agent. She gets the interview with Lee Harvey Oswald back in 1962. Well, he's still over in, like, coming back from the Soviet Union, or 1961 or whatever. She's the one that's there to interview him and when he comes back from Moscow. So she's like the CIA agent that's assigned to, like, do all this journalism and writing in connection with all this stuff. She denies being CIA up until her death. You know, even denied it in the JFK Paine documentary, that they confronted her. They interviewed Priscilla McMillan and confronted her with all this stuff. She denies it, but then it's all come out in the documents now that she was in fact CIA. Yep, she was CIA. She's working for the CIA the whole time. writing these op-ed pieces and doing stories for the CIA. What do you know? But anyways, yeah, so that's another key connection is the Priscilla McMillan thing. And man, the Lloyd Berkner thing, the Lloyd Berkner connection is key, because JFK was on his way to the Trade Mart the day of the assassination. He was going to meet with Lloyd Berkner at the Trade Mart. Now, Lloyd Berkner was a physicist, one of the 6 people on the Robertson panel. So this is J. Allen Hynek on that panel, Luis Alvarez, Frederick Durant. This guy's allegedly, MJ12. These are the guys that allegedly hold the UFO file. Okay. Oh, what are people talking about? Yeah, there are people that have done the large language model. Okay. The new files is a bunch of shit, dude. The new files are nothing. There's nothing in the new files. It's all censored crap, and we're still waiting for the damn Jackie Kennedy. We're still waiting for the George Joannides file. That's number one, is George Joannides file. Because if you don't know who George Joannides was, George Joannides was part of MJ Wave, or JM Wave, sorry, the CIA Cuban station. They were basically creating all this propaganda and airing it over the airwaves into Cuba, so that they had set up this whole fake Cuban Twitter program to try to infiltrate Twitter. This was recently. They had a whole until the Cuban government shut it down, and then he was given the Lifetime Achievement Medal by the CIA. And nobody knows why. So here he is getting the Lifetime Achievement Medal. The person giving it to him is Bobby Inman, known to have been, one of the guys connected to the UFO file for the deep state, giving George Joannides this Lifetime Achievement Award from the CIA. What could he possibly give him that award for? We don't have George Joannides' file. We don't know anything that he really did. He was a secret, and in a lot of ways, nobody even knew who this guy existed or anything about him until he was, recently uncovered and discovered. So until we get the George Joannides file, until we get, Jackie Kennedy's testimony, until we get all the Ruth Payne stuff, until we get all the, there's tons of key files that are still missing. And there's so much, there's 80,000 files that have just been released. And you can look them up on National Archives. They're not searchable yet. Queryable in terms of, people are working on plugging them to AI and then getting them queryable, but that has a problem too, because a lot of these documents, what they did is that they put them on a copy machine. They made a copy. They took the copy off the copy machine, turned it a little bit on the Xerox machine, made another copy, took that copy off, made another copy of the copy, and they did it and turned it a bunch of times until it's all fuzzed out. And so the documents that we now have that are left over, the important stuff, unscannable, trying to, scan that into a recognizable format and is not an easy thing. A lot of them don't work, that you can't get the text recognition. It doesn't know the difference between the I's and the T's and everything else. But the National Archives records, this is not the thing I'm looking for either, with the National Archives for the JFK files thing. But again, there's a whole, Mark Grobert goes over a lot of this stuff, and I'm sure there's there's got to be like a list somewhere of where all the key records are. There's certain sections of the Warren Commission records that are exempt, that you can't get access to, that have been left out. So all that stuff is like certain key stuff that we've been waiting for, that we know exists. It's not like it's been destroyed. It's not like it's been, edited or tampered with, although there is a little bit of evidence for that. If you look into this, again, that whole interview that Dark Journalist did with, and I don't know where that went, but the interview that Dark Journalist did with the one I started this whole presentation with, and now I can't think of the guy's name because there's too much noise going on outside my door. I can't focus on what I'm doing. But yeah, Dark Journalist, go back to that that interview and watch that one. It's probably in my history now. Yeah, this one. Douglas Caddy, sorry. And then Douglas Caddy, at the end of this, he talks about how, in 1968, Howard Hunt went into the National Archives and inserted a bunch of false cables and made a bunch of false stuff. And he admits to it and talks about it in this interview towards the end, which is also interesting because it's like, well, if Howard Hunt put all these false cables in there to try to, make Kennedy look like he knew about things that he didn't know about, or approved to things that he didn't know about, they were trying to basically make Kennedy look like he was a bad guy and knew more. Just all this stuff. Who knows what else people could have got in and inserted. So we have to be careful with some of these documents and the files that do come out of this archive, that they are indeed legit information and legit files. And but yeah, there's so much evidence that Oswald was CIA and working, he had the evidence that Oswald had a 201 file. Okay. So that completely shows that Anslinger lied under oath on his testimony about Oswald, because they asked Anslinger about Oswald and if he, had a military file. And they said, no, we don't have any files. We never had a file on Oswald. And it was such a big lie, it turns out, that not only did the CIA have a 201 file on Oswald, but Oswald's CIA file was so large, it's 60 boxes. It wouldn't fit into your damn bedroom. The files themselves just wouldn't, the archive of the physical files themselves would not fit into your bedroom. That's how big their file is on Oswald. And it's all come out. It's man, they did quite a bit of work on this Oswald character, and can't wait to see all the stuff come out on that. But yeah, there's tons of files still missing. I wish I knew more about this stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting connections there, man. It just, the director of the CIA coming from the Atomic Energy Commission, all the connections with the school book depository building and these characters, the fact that he starts his work for Nixon in 1947. So what happens in 47 that you got these guys, hanging around and doing surveillance for the government and then all this. It's just a big mess. It's a lot of stuff going on, and I can't wait to hear what comes out of this, because if he was really going there to meet with Lloyd Berkner and basically talk about getting the UFO file out and exposing the UFO file, then that's huge. And that's definitely the reason that they killed him, and that they've been covering it up ever since. And then if they covered up that you know, who covered that up and who's been keeping this covered up and who's in control of our government? Do we even know that humans and real people are in control of our government anymore? If this is the case, because it literally could be friggin' aliens running our government now, for all we know, with the Men in Black. You know, at this point, it's just. Anyways, that's a little bit deep down the rabbit hole. I don't really want to get off on a whole conspiracy tangent, because we can go that way. You know, we can say, hey, did we, you know, if we get free energy technology from aliens and we're covering up free energy technology, right? Then who's to say, you know, why do we need 9/11? Is it really about oil? Did we go to Iraq for oil and this oil business? Or is there a Stargate in Iraq that we needed to get in this, the Tomb of Gilgamesh that we're going after? And is really giant structures under the pyramids. I mean, how deep down we can go? So deep, but yeah, at the end we have to say, hey, we need like evidence. Did we actually find a Stargate? Is there any evidence of any of this stuff ever existing, or is it all just crap? Because at the end of the day, we have a lot of evidence for a lot of this conspiracy stuff, evidence that we showed on tonight's broadcast and more. Yeah, right. The giants and Babylon and all this crap, man. See? Yeah, I know, right? So if it's not free energy, then it's Anunnaki bloodlines and stargates and stuff, man. And I guess I don't know. Anyways, I'm gonna get going here soon, guys. I figure I'll if anyone wants to come on and add anything or talk, throw something at me. It's been a long week, man. With all the crap that's going on and everything else, I just it's been a long week, and I don't know exactly. Here we go. I know Michael wanted to join.
I mean, I was actually working on something else. I should be working on that still, but hey, you know, it's been a while. It's been a while.
Yeah, I haven't done a stream. I've been wanting to do this. There's a ton more stuff that I wanted to cover and talk about that I've just forgotten about, because it's like I keep
It's a lot. Yeah.
I had a long week. I've been working nonstop, and I'm going to be working nonstop. So
Make sure to get some rest
I
tonight.
feel that, right? And it's tough to balance and then like pre-schedule stuff, like when you have to work full days, and then by the end of the day you're just so exhausted that you have to like delay it, postpone it, and well, glad to have you on the weekends, right?
Mm-hmm. So yeah,
finally got some time on a Sunday afternoon to actually do a you know, I did one space earlier this week and stuff, but man, it's hard, and I don't make any money from this, and I'm shadow banned to fucking all hell. So it's like I can't get over 200, you know, people watching an episode, because I'm on the what's it? The no new subscribers.
No share list,
Yeah,
no
the no
new
share.
subscribers. Yeah,
Yeah.
I myself.
Jeremy, have you thought of starting a second channel?
Yes, I'm into.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jeremy, this is something we got to get going. You do have your Jeremy Reese channel that's just under 1,000, and like we got to use that as like a shorts and like extra live stream sort of channel stuff,
Maybe,
just to try to beat the algorithms a little bit and just pump out extra content that, you know, gets the community going, sort of thing.
And I found like Tim was having really good luck recently with collaborations. I think that they have changed the way that YouTube and other social media platforms work. Now they don't let things go viral naturally anymore. I feel like they have their gatekeepers that have the big channels. Like they have a CIA channel, like a handler for Joe Rogan and stuff. And then like all the top like podcasts and everything are somewhat controlled. And so if you control those, you can you control the new power structure, that because the podcasting was supposed to fix things, but I think they've captured it now. And it seems like the only way to really grow big is to do collaborations with other people, which is good because then it's a kind of organic way of verifying that you're a human instead of an AI. For now, I'm sure AI will get clever enough, but like it's an interesting approach for controlling things, making sure that nothing gets viral that they don't want getting viral. Because then if you control all the top channels, but I don't think I don't think they have complete control yet. So it's important that this year we break through that ceiling and do some collaborations with people, I think.
Absolutely, Michael. And I'm actually working on this grand strategy that I'm writing up a proposal for APEC and all on doing exactly that, of like multi-streaming with other channels such as Tesla Tech. Also approached Bob Grenier with it to try to like everybody co-stream each other's conferences to get as much exposure over the algorithms as possible into the actual engineering science communities that already have followings. And then also I've been
to see if we can network with the bigger channels, though. I know Jeremy's got a pretty good network already for that. But
exactly. I've
reached out. You know what? I'm gonna be going back on Tim Pool again at some point this year. And
we got to make sure we have a lot of good content before we do that. We want that to be big. But I mean that's something.
Jeremy has a decade and a half of good content. That's part of what I'm going to be doing.
I mean breakthroughs. I think this is going to be the year. This is going to be the year where we take some physics breakthroughs and make them formalized in terms of existing physics that people can understand and relate to from the standard knowledge base that people are taught, hopefully.
Another thing we need to make happen this year that I am determined on is mixed mental arts, Salvatore Pais versus Jack Sarfati, because it's like I know it's they don't.
I don't know if that'll go well.
Exactly,
you know, I don't want to force that or push that, man. You know, it's like I've already thrown the idea out there, and it's like it didn't seem like it was going to take off. So
Sal's got too much stuff on his end.
Happen is essentially Salvador Pais is the first engineer that published these patents that like break the laws of physics, and then now Sarfati is like the first physicist to like publish one essentially with like his warp drive stuff, and that like they're battling for this like first of right thing because they're like both government agents doing it like officially.
Sal's also got his hands tied behind his back because like he can't talk about a lot of the details of the stuff he worked on, so it's really difficult for Sal to compete fairly there. So I think
that's why we have to force them to debate publicly together on our platform, because it's like they're going to have to release as much as they can trying to defend their positions. It's like
we can do something like that, but that's not the way. Sal could get in trouble for that.
Yeah, I don't want anyone to break their NDAs or violate laws or disclose classified information and go to. I just want breakthrough propulsion technology that we can have people invest in. I can have a company we can build off this and actually, you know, change the world, building awesome new products that work on new technology. That's what I want.
This will be the year, hopefully.
I hope so, man. I hope so. We got a lot of people working on it and putting a lot of money and investment and time and energy and money into all this. So, you know, I don't know.
We'll warm up with some other Sal debates, right? But it's like we need to get the public scientific debate going, and that like Sal and Sarfati, they both like when we talk to them, you can see when they stop themselves and self-censor to not break their NDAs, but just to get them out and like publicly debating other big names that are like the officials would be good. And like
that'll get attention, but it won't get results.
But we need the attention to start.
I mean, these days it's an attention economy, so whatever. Maybe that's the way.
That's at least the way to break the algorithms, right? It's like,
Well, this is what we need to know is that as long as guys like Project Unity and all these dudes have our back when we do make a discovery, and they help us, that they'll be there to help us get it out there, and that it won't get won't allow it to get censored and covered up.
Mhm.
So we know a lot of these guys. They're already, Jay's, was there on all these big channels and stuff. Joe Rogan was covering him, so like when this happens, yeah, we have the people we can branch out to and show it to, as what I'm hoping. And
Yeah, we got to make that network. It's going to be big. I think at the very least, I think we can soon have something open source that anyone can build that will confirm the stuff that Charles Bueller's working on at the very least. And that suggests that electrogravitics is real, the T.T. Brown stuff is real, that extended electrodynamics has something to it. That's already a lot. Yeah, I don't know if it's engineerable yet. We'll have to see. But basically, any longitudinal antenna like that can be detected. So that basically has to be live streamed, the experiment, if we suspect that there will be a positive result. We'll see.
yeah, right on. And I've been keeping up with all the experiments they've been doing with that vacuum chamber down at Mark's. So yeah, they just did a live stream. We'll have to catch up with them soon and and get them on and do a live stream with all of them at some point soon.
We'll figure something out.
Yeah, let's get back in the loop. After this stream's over, I'll stick around. I want to we'll talk about linking up some more too. So
Sure.
I'd like to get more stuff going on this summer, because there's a lot to look forward to this year with all the new possibilities on the horizon. Thank God, we didn't get 4 more years of a fake puppet government, and we have a government that's making moves here to actually disclose and declassify secrets and real information that's vital to the survival of our species and our republic.
The Department of Government Efficiency is not doing enough yet, but it's mostly Congress's fault for that. So we'll see. I mean,
yeah, they're being
mess right now.
They shut down U.S. aid.
Right now, I would say we're falling behind schedule for what we should be doing. But yeah, I mean, we'll see how that front goes. But
it's kind of crazy, man. I mean, you got when I saw Luna up here, promoting Vanity Fair article written by a deep state journalist. And I'm just like, this is, these people are like on the wrong side. This is not like, these are the people we need to be taking out and exposing. That kind of made me lose faith. And I've really come around to the fact that Pam Bondi is just a PR face of the Justice Department now. And it's quite obvious that there's other people that Trump has in place that are actually doing the legwork and a lot of the stuff behind the scenes.
Well, you can't do what he's doing without a good cabinet. We'll see if it's actually good though.
If Kash Patel,
Kash Patel, and then Dan Benigno or whatever his name is below him. That's quite the stir. And then we'll see if they can get somewhere with the FBI, because the FBI took. The FBI took Roscoe group out there.
The FBI has a ton of their own evidence on JFK assassination. They took Roscoe White's diary from his son and never gave it back to him. So they have tons of stuff.
And like you're saying, they have Jackie's original testimony that they didn't even include. They're still holding on.
That reminds me
of it all. Apparently, right now they're focused in their full staff just doing redactions on all the Epstein files. They have everything. It's crazy the amount of crimes that they have the evidence documenting of the government officials.
What's the most fucked up part of it? No one's been arrested yet. Not one person of the deep state have been arrested yet.
Well, that's not what the Department of Government Efficiency is about at the moment. I don't think they're going to do arrests. That's the bad
But
thing.
QAnon promised me this.
Yeah, no, that's probably.
But
that-
David
that-
Wilcox said there were sealed indictments.
Yeah, no, that's not happening.
Right? But
No, that
but
wasn't.
it's like that would
I never
cause
believed
like
that
an
from the start.
actual
That's-
civil war, though. It's like they need to just like the first steps. He's removed them all from like their government briefings. He's taken away their access, right? Like he's cutting, and then the Doge is about cutting off the funding and like finding out how U.S. aid was funding the Soros Foundation so much and all these different deep state actors. It's like at least we're seeing tangible, actionable results that they're implementing from the very start. So it's like you can only hope, and it's like they can only introduce so much change without triggering absolute chaos and like the breakdown of the corrupt society that with it's like you have to plug one hole at a time, remove like the rotten foundation here, fill something there, and then it's like then you have
it's a lot to coordinate. Yeah, it's not easy work, and I wish them well with that project. But even if that fails, it's the end game this year. It's do or die time.
Yeah, yeah, this is it, man. We are on crunch time. This is our Overton window.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, please, anyone. I appreciate I appreciate very much the Complazart has given me 2 super chats, brother. Always appreciate that. Yeah, I'm gonna reach out to UAP Gerb.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Yeah,
I would love to get him on for an interview, and he's got a ton of knowledge, and
he's done just the amount of research that he's put in a consumable format for the average person is incredible.
Yeah, it's great, man. I tried doing that to a certain point, and that when it became like, I just was like, I can't do that because it's just like we were. This channel was literally like the fire hose, and we were just trying to like get as much information as possible. And now that we've kind of like let the fire hose run, now we have to sit here and try to figure out what let the money.
It's good, we got Red Panda Koala, we got UAP Gerb, we got like Jesse Michaels, and all these people now like digging through this stuff and turning it into like stuff that's like human readable.
yeah,
mass consumable media, right? Like content that appeals to the masses, that's getting out there and it's causing the discussion. And that's another major thing with like this recent pyramid, the mega structure, whatever underneath, whether it turns out to be real or not, it's that it's put the discussion into the mainstream mindset of that there's this paradigm shifting possibility of human history being different than what we're being fed and have like everything's been based on. And just that aspect alone is what's needed, especially if it's like there's aliens or there's other things out there and whatnot, that it's like people won't freak out as much when it's like they're already questioning different fundamentals of their like belief of the basis of what reality is, right? It's like they're okay with it. It's like, okay, maybe something's completely different than what we've been taught, but does that change that the sun's going to rise tomorrow? No. Do we need to burn everything down? No. We can accept this, and now we can apply it into our understanding and actually start correcting mistakes that we've been doing for a long time. Right?
Looking forward to it.
Great. That would be great, man. Yeah, I'm ready for it, man.
That's a good place to end it for the night, I guess. Unless there's other people who
thank you guys for watching, and we're going to keep up the good fight here, regardless of the shadow bans, regardless of the censorship. We are reaching through, and we are, they will never stop this. No amount of propaganda or lies or counterintelligence is ever going to defeat this at this point. And I think that I think we're at a real turning point in humanity right now, and now we need to push harder than ever. So thank you guys for all the support over the years, and let's really kick ass this year. I'm ready for it.
Me too.
Much
Absolutely.
love, guys.